What's going on, everybody? Marl Games back again with a video of a dungeon run from Vanilla WoW. This time it's going to be Scholomance, again with me as the protection paladin tanking. Um, at this point I was 60 and I was kind of in the middle of farming Scholo because there's this set called Deathbone in here that drops, and it's like the paladin tank set where it has tons of defense, stamina, and mana per 5 on it. So it's like, I don't know, it's like Blizzard said that this is the paladin tanking set, so I had to try and get it to see if if Blizzard was being generous or if they were trying to trick paladins. So um, here's this run I'm doing where I think I already have Deathbone boots, gloves, and legs already. So I'm still trying to get the chest piece and the belt. So that's about what my gear level is. I'd also run Stratholme a little bit, so I ended up actually getting Helm of the Executioner already. So that's like previous tanking helm because it has 2% hit on it. So that was really nice. So I was feeling pretty confident to tank Scholo because Scholo is one of the hardest dungeons at 60, in my opinion. Just it's a very dense dungeon with caster mobs, so if you get chain pulls, you're pretty much screwed. The ghosts in this dungeon are really hard, but you're a paladin. You don't fear the undead like warriors or druids, so you're the man for doing this. So I've already played through some of it, so but now we're at the first boss. This guy, he does a disarm, so if you can remember, like equip your immune disarm gloves, and he does a mind control on somebody, and sometimes he drops threat on you. So he did that knockback on me, and he switched threat targets. But so how you deal with that for this boss is exorcism and then judgment. So you save those cooldowns for when he does that threat drop, and then you just pop those two things at the same time, and that's just a ton of holy damage. So Righteous Fury's almost guaranteed to return his aggro back to you. So another thing with that boss is he can knock you out the window. so just don't face your back towards the window. So pro tip there. I think everybody's made that mistake once, and they never forget. Okay, so there's this room that I already half cleared, and the thing that's hard about it is these dark summoners. They basically summon these little skeletons that are actually, they can kill your healer if you don't control them. See, one's hitting the healer right now, but you can just use your exorcism to kind of taunt them off. And so you want to kill the summoners really fast, and once you do that, it's pretty easy. I am running Shadow Protection Aura during a lot of this because just so many of them cast Shadow Bolt, especially in this room. Probably in the next room I switched to Frost Aura, but in here Shadow's the way to go. And if you've noticed how I've been pulling, I've been line of sighting, so you can use, like, at the entrance you can go around the corner, you can use that little boss balcony to pull from to line of sight, and right here behind this door there's like, it comes out a little bit, so you can actually line of sight pull like this. So it's really great. This is where I use rank 1 exorcism to pull the little skeleton ad, and that gets all of them to come, and I'm behind that corner, so even though they're all casters, they come right up. So that's nice, just to this is the safe way to do it, because if you fight where they're standing, you're like right next to another pack, and they will just, you're almost guaranteed to pull. So, and I like clearing all the packs here because, as you just saw, dark runes drop. Um, those are really nice. Like, I always need on those. If you're a healing class, you should take prio on those. So that's a benefit of being a paladin, is that if you're tanking this compared to a warrior, you can need on those dark runes. So yeah, they end up being worth some money. So getting those, but you can also use them for if when you're healing, or I haven't really used them when I'm tanking, but I guess you could. But it's kind of bad to sacrifice 1,000 health when you're tanking. So we're just clearing this final pack in this room, and like if you ever wipe and you're running back, it can, people, they kind of blend in, so sometimes they can kill you if you skip them. My group composition is pretty nice for this. I have a rogue, a hunter, a healing druid, and a mage, so no other plate classes. Kind of intentional by me because I really wanted to get the Deathbone set. So yeah, we just have these pure DPS classes and a druid. So druid's really nice because she can decurse, which there's a lot of annoying curses in this dungeon. And the mage is really important too because he can sheep, and there's a lot of humanoids in this dungeon. So this first pack outside the door this is where, when it gets hard and a lot of groups kind of fail, there's these ghost mobs that you need to decide whether you want to mark them skull or X. You mark them skull if you're confident in your group's DPS, but you mark them X if your group has low DPS. And you'll see, so this pull, my group DPS was too low, so the ghost split and then he heals back to full. So for this reason, you should have marked him as X and killed the humanoid first. Just kind of a hint there on how to clear these packs efficiently. Because if you split DPS or you target in the wrong manner, you're just taking more damage because that ghost heals itself, and then you're like spending a ton of mana trying to control it when it splits into ghosts, when you have to consecrate pretty much. So yeah, you better learn how to do those packs, because this whole room you enter into has tons of them. And again, you want to be line of sighting everything. You don't want to be fighting mobs where they're standing, so you can use these bookcases here to pull this pack. And you should use CC pretty much. Depends how much resistance you have, but you're going to be taking heavy frost and shadow damage from these mobs, especially frost damage, because they do like a cone of cold, which can hit your whole party. So good to protect everybody like that. And we have Mark of the Wild too, so that helps. It'll boost people's shadow resistance slightly. We have this tryhard rogue trying to sap, but this rogue helped me a lot get my Deathbone set, so I can't be mean to him. So yeah, this pull looks kind of like a mess. We're like over CCing. They're taking for, no one's really focusing on the ghost. So this is just a problem. This wasn't efficient as a pull. We should have been focusing on X as skull, because I mean, this is kind of my group. Like, my hunter's tryharding a little bit. He's like trying to CC, but it's sacrificing his DPS. So really, I should be telling the hunter here to not CC, but I mean, some hunters just they insist to trap everything and like off tank with their pet. So I don't know. It whatever, if he wants to do it, fine. But just notice that so that you know what to mark Skull and X, because um, those ghosts are just a pain. They, I've had a lot of practice fighting them, so I don't know. I'm doing well here with dealing with them, despite us focus firing wrong. But it's not, they can totally wipe out groups if you're just coming in blind and no one really knows how to deal with it. So it's one of the things that makes Scholo difficult, is this room in particular. But yeah, Scholo is a very profitable dungeon to run because of dark runes, and you can get a lot of dungeon set gear drops, and probably I've seen the most epic drops here too. There's a lot of blue drops. You get pristine black diamonds. You get what? There's some recipes in here that drop. The distilled wisdom flask recipe, and life stealing can drop from the ghosts in the very first room. I actually won that recently on a server, and that can sell for a few hundred gold. So, and the flask will for sure sell for at least 500, depending on where your server is at. But yeah, so just more line of sighting. I love these nooks and crannies on the wall that you can jump into, because it's perfect for line of sighting. And you just kind of keep going, because there's all these like patrols that you can grab one by one, so just kind of conserve your mana as a paladin tank. This pull is a little bit hard because there's 4 of them. Two adepts, those ones that cast frost, while the necromancer is like a melee that casts AoE shadow bolts. So usually I'm killing the necromancer first because I'm running frost aura, and he's a melee mob, so he's less likely to get stuck out in the like people won't have to run to kill him. He comes to us. So he just comes to us faster, so it makes sense to kill him first. And again, my group is like failing at killing this ghost fast enough. But I got a good healer, so it's working out. At this point, I'm using slightly better gear than my Blackrock Spire video. I switched from using Antu Soul, the ZF hammer, to using this one that I got from, basically once I hit 60, I found a Upper Blackrock Spire group and just farmed that a bit as a healer. And there's a ton of good drops in there. Like if you can get Briarwood Reed early, which I didn't, but if you can, it's perfect for tanking, and it's just the greatest trinket for paladins before they start raiding, unless you're Ret, but we don't talk about that here. But I also, this hammer I'm wielding, it drops from by this blacksmithing orc that is kind of around where Jet is. So make sure your group kills him when you run, so you can get this plus 14 spell damage weapon I'm using. And that just helps with my threat. It's got 40 DPS on it, so it's a level 60 weapon. And that's just great for paladins. Like, I mostly played originally Protection Paladin and during Burning Crusade, and I just remember there that paladin tanks always used like a caster weapon. Of course, caster weapons then had way more spell damage on him, like 150 or so. So this only has 14 on it, so it's not a huge difference, but combined with the DPS increase, which is like +8 from the ZF weapon, it's just going to give you more single target threat, I guess, and a little bit more on your consecrate, like +1 to the tick. So yeah, here's a problem. Here is the CC is keeping the mobs from running towards us. So ideally your group, okay, that little skeleton will pull the next 3 mobs, so this is kind of hectic. Again, I'm marking the skull as the ghost indiscriminately, which I shouldn't be because as you can see it's splitting. Here I barely saved the healer with Blessing of Protection. You should always have that keybind ready for when that happens. It's tough here though because the ghost also casts silence on you, so that you kind of need to plan around that, like maybe drop your consecration early, because if he splits into ghosts and you don't have consecrate going, then they're going to go straight for the healer, and then you better hope that your silences ran out by then so you can Blessing of Protection them. But yeah, it's just a tough timing. Silence sucks. So you might even want to like experiment with kiting the ghost a little bit, or stunning it at the right time. Okay, so at this point we're going into the basement. This is like an optional boss, but it's used for the quest to get the Bag of Horrors item. So this is a pretty good room for Paladin tanks. It's just a bunch of AoE packs with some elite ghouls in it, and it's kind of annoying depending on your group composition though, because like all the little skeletons are immune to fire and shadow, and maybe even frost. So it just it's like it ruins the DPS of all your AoE classes. So you kind of rely on single target. There you see the ghouls drop a cloud where they die, so you want to kill them not in front of the doorway so people can run through without taking damage. You kind of want to pull them to the side as they're dying when you're tanking them. And so this is where hunters are nice. They can drop frost traps while you consecrate, and that lets you kite a little bit as you tank, so you can kind of overpull mobs and just use your consecrate, put it under the frost trap, and then you'll just kite and you don't take damage, but you're maintaining threat. So everybody's gonna love you if you can do this on some packs, because the healer doesn't have to work and people love AoEing, I think. Especially probably on Classic, where it's like retail players, where if I understand correctly, CC isn't a thing in modern retail WoW. Make sure you're using your Argent Dawn trinket when you're doing Scholo or Stratholme. You do want to get Exalted Argent Dawn eventually. Like, it makes it free for you to get into Nax rather than spending 100 or 200 gold to get in. And you also get a shoulder enchant for resistances, so that helps Paladin tanks, especially if you run Scholo a lot. Yeah. So just pulling more of these. There's just a ton of stuff to AoE. I don't know why I'm pulling all the way back here, but my group is like hesitant to go inside, so I'm just doing it for them. But people can ass pull in this room, and like there is a ghoul pat. I think I pulled that originally at the start, but I can chain pull, so things can get out of control when you're doing this if you go inside immediately. So we're just playing it safe, doing everything out here. White Soul Helm. That's a good Paladin healing helm recipe. You just have to find an armor smith to make it, which I think I won the recipe or found it at some point, but I couldn't find an armor smith to make it for me, so I was using a leather helm forever to heal. So it's just nice if when you heal that you're wearing plate armor. So I mean, especially in 5-mans where sometimes you catch aggro and then you don't really have to bubble right away. So, but anyway, I guess I'll speed this up a bit. Yeah, I did that in my Blackrock Spire video. This is Scholo, I think, is pretty long, but Lower Blackrock Spire's long as fuck. There's just so much trash in there. But so, I usually skip this boss because this trash takes a while. And the boss doesn't really drop anything good. If you do this boss though, you actually unlock a chest later on in the dungeon, so that's a plus. It's like it's in the next room with all the other zombies, and it can contain like 3 or 5 green items, so pretty good. And if your group doesn't know about it, you can wait till the end of the run, and then you don't have to roll for it. But someone might do the same thing, so you'll be like racing against them. That I've done that before, but whatever. Finally gonna finish this. So now onto the boss. The thing with her is that she does this split ability where she turns into like 1,000 mobs, and what you want to do for that is you want to put a mark on her, and you need to tell your group to focus fire the mark and not to AoE at all, because if they AoE, they're gonna catch aggro from all of the whatchamacallits, the copies, and you want to catch that aggro because you're the tank. So you'll put down a consecrate preemptively so that you immediately get the AoE aggro, and they like the mage needs to know not to AoE, otherwise they're just gonna get wrecked. And that was bad timing by the healer. Like she must have used like a healing touch right as they spawned. So you should also be prepared to blessing of protection your healer right away. So yeah, there I was slow using the consecrate again. So if you do this boss enough times, you'll get the timing down. So just time your consecration right and be ready to BOP your healer, and you're good. And so I lied. There's actually one good drop from this boss. Is the Phantasmal Cloak. It's got strength, stamina, and extra armor, so good for tanking. Especially if you don't have a spell damage cloak, or I actually got this really cool cloak from Stratholm Live that it's got 15 stamina and 4 mana per 5 on it. So that's really good for pally tanking specifically. Just that's one thing I found useful, is stacking mana per 5, and of course stamina is good. So that's the basement. Only one death I think was the healer during that boss fight, but it's alright. And one more pack. This one is a little bit hard too. It's got a ghost, the skeleton will cast Under Armor on you, so that's not ideal if you're tanking a bunch of things at the same time. So yeah, I usually try to get a priest to shackle the skeleton, or the hunter to trap it, and then you just kill that whenever, and it's easy. Then you kill these casters. For some reason, oh, I went for the sap first, so. Yeah, my group is really ambitious about their CC. This hunter's trying to trap everything. The rogue is sapping, and we got the mage, of course. So really nice. Okay, so this is maybe the hardest part of Scolo. I mean, it's short, but I just hate dying here, and it's so easy to die because these handler mobs, they do a ton of damage. And the whelps do damage too, and they like put a debuff on you that lowers your stamina. So what you want to do is you want to get aggro on that handler, and then you want to kite it through like improved blizzard and frost trap. Otherwise he's going to be like blast waving and cone of colding you and just doing a ton of spell damage to you, and you can't even like resist for it because he does like 3 different schools. And then the whelps do nature damage on you, so it's just total pain to, if you, I mean, you're gonna die if you try to fight him, pretty much. So you like pull him, you judge him, you cast, you try to, maybe before that, you put down a consecrate for him to run into. Then you try to use your Hammer of Justice cooldown on him, and then you place another consecrate, and then you kite him, and hope to God that you have some slow in your group. Like a warrior could help too, although I wouldn't bring a warrior in my group because I'm trying to get Deathbone, but with Piercing Howl. But if you were a warrior tank, then you could use Piercing Howl to kite him, and that's nice. Just like throw a couple Sunders on him, and then you could do that. So yeah, killing these whelps. There's the pristine black diamond. Depending what patch you're on, that's extremely valuable. And here we go to Rattle Gor and the skeletons. Here I equip my Argent Defender. That's the shield with 1% proc of giving you 50% block for 10 seconds. And so these mobs attack really fast, and so they have a good chance of proccing that shield. And when they do, you'll take close to no damage, so really nice to use here. It just doesn't have stamina on it, so just be aware of that. But if your healer is like not stressing you out, it's a good time to try out your Argent Defender. See, look at all these attacks they're doing on me, and I'm just blocking it all. Like, look at that. That's so good. So many little numbers popping up. Okay, so you can decide whether to clear the whole room. These things drop Skin of Shadow, which are used for a Dire Maul enchant, the Libram of Focus, that will do +8 spell damage and healing on head and leg slots. And so those are pretty good for a paladin, so you should be farming Scholo anyway to get those, and I didn't end up putting it on my tank gear, but it's good for your healer gear, and you could experiment with tanking with the spell damage enchants. But I usually go for the Libram of Constitution with the +100 health, so. But just know, Skin of Shadows can be used by paladins, so it's not a bad idea to clear all the mobs in here so you have a good chance of getting that drop. There's one right there. I think by now I already had a stash of them, so. But I just won that one, so great. There's Rattle Gor. He a lot of times comes with an extra ad, and what you want to do is mark Rattle Gor's skull, because he does a threat drop. So you need to put all your attention on him, basically, and all you need to do is like judge or exorcism his ad once or twice, but use a Consecrate, use Holy Shield, and you're going to have his threat forever. But it's Rattle Gor who's going to drop threat and go crazy and stun you, and so you just need to make sure that you control him as best you can. It's really nice we had a hunter in this group with I think he's Beast Mastery, so his pet was able to tank a bit, and if the rogue pops evasion or and vanish in that case, then that was well handled. And then you just try to save your Exorcism and Judgment for when he drops threat and spam those on him, and eventually you get him back. You should save your Blessing of Protection for bosses that drop threat, and you should only use it on the healer. Like, if you waste it on the rogue or the mage, then it's probably gonna switch to the healer, and that's really bad. So just remember that like rogues can vanish, mages can ice block, hunters feign death, warriors can tank a little bit. So like, save the Blessing Air Protection for your healer specifically. You might use it on your mage when you're like doing AoE pulls with huge packs, or your warlock too if he's hellfiring, but otherwise you want to keep it just for your healer. Oh, and here I'm showing my gear a bit, so you can see it's a mix of plus defense, spell damage, mana per 5. I've got 4150 hit points. I guess I have a little bit less than that. Like I'm just over 4,000 because I have Mark of the Wild on. But yeah, so you don't need amazing hit points to tank Scholo as a paladin. But for sure you should get over 4,000. Like, just my experience as a healer, if I see that a tank in a dungeon has less than 4k hit points, then I'm gonna be nervous as fuck. I might just leave the group. So yeah, just even though you can get away with it, probably just try to get over 4,000 health. It's a nice number to look at compared to like 37 or something. And for some reason my group pulled both sides. But we're just clearing this because dark runes pretty much. But it does make pulling the next room safer. So that right here is kind of a choice your group makes, is whether you want to clear the next room or if you want to do like this jump maneuver from the entrance. This way is a lot safer, you just have to kill more stuff, but it also clears away the mobs that are guarding that chest that you unlocked by killing the basement boss. So it makes sense in this case for us to clear it, but I usually clear it anyway just because, I mean, especially as a paladin, you're gonna have issues later on. Just saying, not having a taunt it can possibly cause you issues later in the dungeon, on the last boss. That's just a hard boss to tank, and it kind of relies on your group to carry you a bit, even as a warrior tank. But the thing is, there's a good chance you'll wipe just by like bad luck. So it just makes sense to clear this so you don't have to do like this fancy skip maneuver that possibly fails a bunch of times. So yeah, we're clearing it. One thing to note is there's these Crypt Fiend pats inside, and they cast this web ability on you, so you want to make sure that you pull them separately from the ghouls, because the ghouls do that gas cloud when they die, so you don't want to be webbed and in the gas cloud at the same time, or you're probably going to get wrecked. That's more essential for a warrior to understand, because they don't have Blessing of Freedom, but still, you don't want to get caught off guard by that. So just pull the spiders separate from the ghouls, and you don't have to worry about it. And so yeah, I'm using my Argent Defender still, and this is just perfect paladin fodder of a room. Like some of these mobs are immune to elemental damage, but holy damage, it's totally good against them, and you're just doing so much damage with Consecrate and Holy Shield, and I should be using Blessing of Sanctuary, but it looks like I'm falling behind on using my blessings. But if you actually look at the damage meter right now, I'm just I'm third place again, so I'm beating the rogue. The mage is barely above me by 2%, and the hunter is above me by like 1%. So again, I'm like a 4th DPS as a paladin tank, so good benefit for that. Scholo is just so nice as a protection paladin. Got exorcism and tons of AoE abilities. Because Scholo can be pretty slow for some groups because they use a ton of CC. They're just forced to, but a paladin can speed it up a bit with their DPS and allowing the group to AoE. So really the dungeon's downhill from here. As far as difficulty, like you cleared this room with all the difficult ghosts, and so now you're just fighting. Why is this caster still alive? But yeah, the trash in the rest of the dungeon isn't too hard. A couple of the bosses are kind of tricky, but just the last boss really is something to worry about. See, there's a lot of blue drops in this dungeon. You can see I'm using Salvation on the Druid Healer and the Mages, while I'm using Wisdom on the Hunter and Might on the Rogues, just because Rogues and Hunters can control their aggro pretty well, while Mages and Druid Healers surprisingly generate a lot of threats, so just keeping it safe there. Sometimes I use Wisdom on the healer instead. It depends. Maybe she caught aggro earlier, so that's why I did it. So you can like start out by giving everybody Wisdom and Might, and then see who pulls, who's giving you trouble with aggro, and you can just salve them. So it's nice to have that as backup for tanking. If you see somebody's like wearing epics, then you should probably just salve them from the start. So here we're going to Raz Frost Whisper's room. I think that's his name. It's the Lich boss. So you want to be putting on Frost Aura pretty quick once you get to this part. These packs are pretty easy. They drop dark runes, so I recommend killing them. I think Warlocks have a quest that they need to access the alchemy tables here. And of course Alchemists would too if they want to craft any flasks. So I always clear this. You could skip these 2 packs on the side, but I mean you can just make money by killing these, so I just do it. And it's easy to AoE here. Nothing's really casting powerful abilities. Make sure you're cleansing Banish off yourself though. I think those Acolytes cast that. So, see? Dark Rune. I didn't win it, but the frickin' Hunter's rolling on Dark Runes in this run. I should probably have chastised him for that, but whatever. I think he was in my guild or something, so I didn't care, but normally Dark Rune should be either reserved for the healer or the tank. So here's Raz. Yeah, I've got Frost Aura on, and he's pretty easy, honestly. You can exorcism him, and you might even want to use like Seal of Wisdom. This is the one thing he does that's a pain, is he freezes you for 15 seconds. So you might want to bubble out of that. I think I messed it up here. I bubbled and then I clicked off regrowth, and then I clicked off bubble, so I kind of screwed up my healer there. So yeah, if you pack enough frost resistance, you can just resist that ice tomb ability. So I ended up dying there because I was sloppy with my right clicking. This is the guy that drops the flask recipe, so if you're a good enough tank, you might be able to reserve it. But yeah, just so you know. You can also get, if you're an engineer, which you should be as a paladin tank, is you can get a gyro freeze trinket that does it's got a 5-minute cooldown to do like a 5-second frost spell reflect effect, and you can actually reflect the ice tomb back onto Roz. So you end up basically stunning the boss for like 15 seconds if you get that trinket and use it on that fight. And it gives you some frost resistance too, so if you want to just be like, just want to steamroll that fight, get the engineering trinket, the frost reflect one. I think it's sold by an NPC in Winter Spring. So yeah. And so now we're going to the last part of the dungeon. It's with the mini bosses. Some more skin of shadow from these mobs. And so yeah, this is my favorite part, because this is where you can possibly get deathbone drops. And everything is pretty easy. They're just mini bosses, so they're pretty much just tank and spanks. Kind of the trash is like a little different for each one, so this one is one of the easiest. You just need to like interrupt those skeleton casters, and it's no big deal. This boss is easy as hell. You can exorcism her, so you're not worrying about threat. She does like an AoE Curse of Agony, but we have a druid, so no problem. Like, I didn't even bother to get like full mana to fight her. More dark runes and some cloth boots. The thing about this is these bosses have a huge drop table that they share. So like, you can be really lucky or you can have terrible luck. Like this rogue I'm running with, I ran with him a bunch, and he was trying to get the cadaver chest, which is like Prebis rogue DPS chest. So but like I ran probably 5 or 6 runs with him and it never dropped, and that's tragic. Well, I had a bit more luck getting Deathbone, so, but it's worth it. Like, if you can get the set from this dungeon, you just look like a total badass, so recommended. Here's one of the harder bosses, the Barov, Lord Alexei Barov. What I'm doing here is I'm going to be CCing one of the skeletons and then killing the other one before we switch to the boss, because the skeletons cast Sunder Armor, so that's it's gonna be rough for you if you try to tank all these things at once and you're like focusing the boss first, because you're gonna end up with basically 0 armor, so you're probably gonna get wrecked by that. So I think I might have cast Turn Undead on that green one, and then I was hoping the hunter would like trap it, and then I was like saving Exorcism to pick it up if it broke out of CC. And so there I almost died. I don't know if my group was decursing me, but that's the other hard thing about this, is that the boss will put a 75% healing curse debuff on you. So you really need to have a druid or a mage in your party for this boss. Otherwise you need to otherwise you're gonna have to bubble it off, and he's probably gonna cast it on you again, so it's gonna be really hard if you don't have a mage or druid when you're doing this dungeon. So there is actually a better way to do this, where I could have had the hunter kite the boss up the stairs, like outside the room, while the rest of the group kills the 2 skeletons. and then all the hunter has to do is run back or feign death, and then we kill the boss alone, and then we'll have plenty of space. It just makes it a lot easier to eliminate the skeletons while you're ignoring the boss. So you can try that. So far, no luck with the death bone. Here's this room. There's like these innocent looking skeleton trash mobs, but they actually hit really hard. So I don't really recommend pulling all of them at once unless your mage is really good about using improved blizzard, or your hunter is giving you frost traps all the time. So you can still kill like 3 at a time, but you're gonna be stressed out as far as healing or dying, so you might end up wasting a potion if you pull all 5 at once if you're not prepared. So just splitting them up a bit. And then we're going on to the Rivinian, I think that's its name. This next boss, what about this next boss? He is easy as hell. The one thing he does is an aggro drop at like 30%. So he takes his current target and like cuts their aggro in half or something. But what you can do is, if you're gonna be a true gamer about it, is you can bubble or blessing of protection yourself when he hits like 35%, and then he's not going to use his knockback on you, which drops your threat. So you can click off blind blessing of protection after he does it to somebody else, and then you'll get him right back. So even though you don't have a taunt, you can kind of mess with the mechanics to get to sort of taunt mobs. So pro tip there. Otherwise you have to chase him around and hope to God your exorcism doesn't resist. So we're going up here to this room. This has a shit ton of little zombies in it that they explode when they die, so it's a fun challenge to pull them all. As I'm doing here, I'm getting dazed, so I almost die and I have to bubble. Thank God I didn't still have forbearance. And then you kite them all to the doorway, and you have your mage and hunter slow them, and you can drop consecrate under them so that you keep aggro, and you can even cast a holy wrath if you have enough mana. The healer was standing too close, so that's unfortunate. Because they do explode when they die, and it puts like a disease on you that stacks, that can end up doing like 500 damage a second to you or something. So you really can't be in melee range of these when they're dying. But overall, this went well. We killed all of them. You do need to be careful about pulling the boss when you're pulling the whole room though, because the boss is immune to slow effects and he hits pretty hard, so your healer is going to get stressed out if you pull him at the same time as all the little guys. So just be aware of that. Killing the rat. Praying for death bone at this point. Yeah, this is a fun boss to tank as a paladin, because he's just so easy and he hits fast. So you use up all your holy shield charges pretty much, and getting some redoubt too, so good stuff. And blood mail. It's not what I wanted. Yeah, this was painful. Oh, and then I died. So I think that boss puts a disease on you that kills you, so I did not cleanse myself, so quite sad. Oh, did I really have to run back? God. So that's one of the bad things about having a druid healer, but yeah, that sucks that I have to run. But this is why I end up clearing it. I mean, if you have a druid healer, then oh, I did get cable rest, so that's nice. But if you have a druid healer, for sure you should clear that room with all the zombies in it, because you don't want to, like, if we had skipped that and the cables had failed, then we'd be in trouble. Because I'd be isolated from the group, so it's like they'd have to die and run back too, so just be aware of that. Next room, some ghouls that drop poison when they die. It's not a big deal. If you're at pretty good gear level, you can just pull all of them at once, and then you just move them as they die, so you don't stand in the cloud. Otherwise, pretty easy. And drinking. This boss is kind of hard in this room. He just constantly drops threat. So I just kind of gave up trying to control him. You just gotta tell your group to kind of kite if they catch aggro, and you save your blessing of protection for your healer. So it just can be a pain. He just really does not like fighting the tank, and warriors are much better at fighting this boss because they have taunt and mocking blow and AoE taunt. So that, like, that's what warriors have to do in this. They just constantly have to taunt. Paladins can't do that, so you're going to be using Blessing of Protection, Blessing of Sacrifice to try to keep your party alive. Maybe even healing, but if you're persistent enough with judging, you can get back aggro. Yeah, he isn't undead, unfortunately, so you can't exorcism, otherwise it would be easier. Here's this rogue with evasion just running around. Unfortunately, I don't think you can slow the boss, so. Oh, and here it is. This is when I get Deathbone Chestplate. So this was like, I was pretty happy with this run. I mean, Deathbone Chestplate is huge for prop paladins. It's actually got more defense on it than like a tier 3 warrior plate. But it's got 17 defense on it. Like it's freaking huge, and then it got some mana per 5 on it and some stamina. So, and it just makes your character look like a badass. Yeah, at this point that was my 4th piece. So it unlocks plus 15 resistances and everything, and that is incredible for doing 5-mans. Like you saw in Scholo, I was taking frost damage and shadow damage, so getting that resist is amazing. And some dungeons like Upper Blackrock Spire and Strathlag, you'll be taking fire damage, so just having it for everything is amazing. So definitely recommend getting 4-piece Deathbone. So yeah, this is when my character turned into a Death Knight, and I start showing my Executioner helm, just like this totally covered in black Paladin. It's pretty badass. About this room, these occultist mobs, they turn into phantoms when they die, or when they hit like 20%, and that makes them immune to all physical damage. So so one thing you can get screwed in Scholo about is if you don't bring any caster DPS. You're a little bit better off than a warrior because you can do exorcism and judgment on them, but you'll just try to remember to bring a caster DPS with you because of these trash packs. Yeah, if you just like have rogues, hunters, and warriors, you're screwed here. You're like gonna be relying on the healer to DPS, which is never a good idea. And when you're killing these packs, you need to kill the ones that are not occultists first, because they'll go down the fastest, and um, I don't know, you'll just be splitting your DPS if you kill the occultists first, because then the melee can't finish them. So you, like, kind of when they go into phantom mode, they're like Super Saiyan, so they do a lot of damage. So you don't want to bring them to that. You don't want to make them transform until you're about to kill them. So just be aware of that. This boss is super easy. It heals itself, but it doesn't really do any damage. So whatever. No drop from there. Just sad. And here we are, the last boss. This boss is really hard. Especially for paladins, because you can't taunt, but it really depends on how lucky you are. And you end up developing a lot of superstitions, because there's just a lot of random involved with this boss. What he does is, like, he teleports you to one of the 6 rooms that you just cleared, and you have to kill mobs in it before you can return to the center. And if he does this to you as you the tank, you lose all your threat on him. So that's really bad for paladins, because you can't really jump up in threat anyway. So you just gotta really pray to the gods, make sure you're in, pray to the light that you are lucky and he doesn't teleport you. And I have all kinds of superstitions about this, where like, if you're standing still while you're tanking him, you're probably going to get teleported. But if you're moving him around, he'll ignore you. But I mean, it's totally random, I think. But another thing you need to do for him is that he casts these arcane missiles, and he, like, channels it for like 5 seconds. So what you do is you move around the corner while he's doing it, and then you'll take no damage because you'll be line of sight. So you just use the staircase to tank him. In this case, the cat got the aggro somehow, which whatever, it worked, I guess. Don't be trying to be a tank purist on this fight. You can, like, help heal if you want. Because it's just a hard fight, and you can end up wiping a few times if you don't. If you just get unlucky with his teleports. And, like, if he teleports the healer, then you need to hopefully have, like, an Edward the Odd to heal yourself with, or you just, like, as you're definitely focus on line of sighting the missiles, and bandaging yourself while doing that so you can get more health, and of course have mana or health potions and Ripper Root tumors too. So there you actually say I just got my Light Forge helm too. So fuck yeah, man, that was a great run for me. I got Deathbone chest and Silent Fang too, but that cloak, and then my tier 0 helm. So really nice. Happy to share that with you guys. This is the end of the video. There you see the portal. So that was a full Scholo run. In total, it took about an hour and 25 minutes or so. So really nice. And I got my drops. So thank you, Scholo gods, for this run. So yeah, hopefully this was cool to watch. Let me know if you have any feedback. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks again, and see you later.